All right, welcome in everyone. We are live. It's BTB Analytics broadcasting on a momentous day. It is Tuesday, of course, November 5th, and that can only mean one thing in our country.
Maction.
Maction is back, baby. I don't know what else is going on. Something might be going on, but Maction is back, baby. We got live action literally on the first game here of the night. So we'll be poking around for some updates as the show rolls on. But college football week 11, ready to get this thing rolling. We got a lot of games to break down, matchups, data, best picks. You know the drill. Let's get into the show.
Give a damn about a hater when I feel like it. Not today, not today, not today, not tomorrow. Get out my way, please. I'm trying to get paid. Not today.
All right. No Friday Night Light matchup for us this week. There's a few games. I mean, there's obviously Maction going on now and then through the end of the week, but we're just gonna jump right ahead into Saturday because there are some pretty good matchups. And the first one, let's get it right into it, boys. Miami going up against Georgia Tech here. So our number makes this 13. This opened or it's currently at 11.5 as of earlier today. So no edge for us on either side. This is going to be great. There's going to be a lot of like the narrative element here, like the rematch, if you will, from last year's infamous botch kneel down. Miami screws that up. Georgia Tech goes on to win the game. So it'll be fun to revisit that travesty that was. But I think for this one, Steve or Seth, let me get your take on it because I think there's still a potential quarterback question mark with this one. So Haynes,
Tech, right?
Yeah, for Georgia Tech, yeah. So Haynes King, does he come back? And if he does, what is his capabilities basically? So if he does, I don't know. I was poking around a little bit, and I think an upset might be on the table here. But I want to kick it over to you, for a minute. Presumably, let's operate under the assumption that he will be back. Maybe.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think in order for the upset you're calling for, he has to be back. But
100%.
I mean, also this is and I don't say it's breaking news. It's not our news to be breaking, but this is really timely news. They just released the playoff rankings, and Miami is number 4. So this has, from here on out, for Miami, this has implications. They're in the pole position. They're basically forecasting clearly them to win the ACC with this number 4 pick. So I think the pressure's on. Obviously, there's a little bit of probably bad blood, no doubt about it, coming from that botch kneel down, like you said. Or I guess not botch. They just didn't kneel it when they should have.
Yeah, they decided not to do the right thing. Yeah.
More like botched coaching, I guess. I don't know. This team, I come to a bit of a different conclusion. I mean, I'm more where the model is here. I don't really see the pathway. Miami, 8th passing offense, 3rd rushing offense. I mean, Georgia Tech is strong stopping the run, 15th against the rush on defense there, but they're the 84th worst pass defense. So I'm thinking Miami is going to be able to throw the hell of the ball. Cam Ward's going to go crazy. And again, I think this extra pressure, or at least maybe validation that the playoff committee sees them as a top 4 team, and that's a big deal. They would have made the old playoff format.
Right. Yeah, Steve, let me get your 2 cents here because Miami's resume to date. Yes, they're juggernaut offensively, like I think number 1 overall net offense. I think you said number 8 passing offense, Seth, if I heard you correct.
Number 8.
Yeah. But when you think back through their schedule so far this year and how they've played has been one thing, but who they have played, I think, is still like they're a good team. They're going to make the playoffs. They might make some noise, but are they deserving of the number 4 seed, number 1? And there have been a couple games already where they eked by through the skin of their teeth, so to speak. So Seth or Steve, let me ask you: are they the real deal? First of all,
yeah. I mean, you can only play who you play, and I get. And we're about this in another matchup. People use this strip the schedule argument all the time about are they deserving and are we going to see what we think we're going to see? I don't think that's going to matter here. I mean, Georgia Tech. Never say never, but this is going to be a blowout. I mean, this is, spoiler alert, this is going to be my off the numbers pick. And I'm going full sin on alt season. And I don't even want to know, Seth, what the raw number is. I don't care. When you look at this game, like, yes, you have the emotional factor. We're going to talk a lot about the statistics and the advanced metrics and whatnot, but let's just look at this as a fan perspective real quick. Yes, we mentioned it. This is the redemption game, right? We already talked about what happened last year and how that kind of tanked Miami season. Mario Cristobal had a lot of questions about that. They're not going to forget that. And oh, by the way, it was Haynes King who beat them last year. Revenge is absolutely on their mind in a conference game. There will be no letting up of the gas pedal whatsoever. And what I see here is, yeah, you're banking on Haynes King starting, but the reality is you may be getting a much worse version of Georgia Tech than what you got last year and what you've seen this season. Yeah. So remember, the last 2 games, Zach Pyron started, but he got benched in the 3rd quarter against Virginia Tech last week. And you got true freshman Aaron Philo, who's a 3-star recruit, who was put in to give this sort of offense some sort of spark here. Now, Brent Key has come out and said he's, quote, very hopeful to have King back, but he said he's a day by day. He has no idea if he's going to be back or not. He can't say it just yet. It's going to be maybe a Thursday where we get any sort of inkling on where he looks like, and it's for sure going to be a game time decision. And even if he does play, what we're hearing is the apparent throwing shoulder injury. So what's that going to do for his effectiveness to move the ball down the field? And I look at this Miami team, and you talk about them kind of scooting by or getting by and skin in their teeth. I mean, you look at that Duke game last week, right? I mean, Duke was beating Miami by 11 points with 10 minutes left in the 3rd quarter. Then they proceeded to get outscored by Miami 36-3. Like, this electric offense is the real deal. And Georgia Tech, if you want to use your argument about the schedule, Georgia Tech has not seen a Miami. So there's nothing from the other side of this that makes me think that Georgia Tech can keep up with this Miami-based offense. So no, I expect them to roll. I got the 11. I think this is going to be a 2-score, 3-score game easily. The explosives are just too much there. This is the real deal.
Yeah. It does kind of feel like, talking about this in real time, that too many stars will have to align. Haynes King's going to have to be back and not have not be held back, playing wise. And then you're probably going to have to rely on a lot of high variance type of situations for them to kick it. But yeah, maybe there was a little bit of recency bias in my head, because watching that Duke game and then just thinking back to like the game against who else did they struggle with? Was it Virginia Tech? Yeah.
Which they could have lost the game, right?
Maybe that's what I had in my head.
Last second touchdown.
The Cal game too. There was some weirdness at the end of that one. So there's been just enough. There's been just enough things that have been going on with Miami, in my opinion, where I'm like, oh man, I don't know where they rank in terms of luck. I don't know if Bill Connolly's got a stat that I haven't seen on where Miami ranks as far as his lucky teams go, but Georgia Tech actually might need more luck.
Yeah.
And you can make an argument, either way. But in each of those games you just mentioned, Miami outscored their opponents in the 4th quarter to get that victory, right? So, you don't want to rely on that. I'm not saying that. You definitely want to see them kind of shore up from 1st quarter to 4th quarter. But when the time matters, they turn their shit on, and that's what scares me. You can be beating them for 45 minutes, and all of a sudden they blitz you, and now it's a blowout.
Yeah. One of the more interesting stats here too is, they've led in a lot of their games. Their defensive pass rate over expected is 42%. So Haynes King not only has to start, he has to play like the Michael Jordan of college football. So, because this defense is used to having teams throw on them and having to defend it, because most of these teams were playing from behind. So, I have concerns, Steve. I don't want to ruin your parade, or maybe bring some presence to the parade. Raw number here, 15.5. So to your point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Right on that teeter-totter, 3 possessions, but firmly over the 2 possession at 14. So I think you're getting a steal here at 11.5, to be honest.
Yeah, I believe that's what the kids call a full send. If I'm using
what is it? Miami Live.
Georgia JT will probably score first. That's interesting.
Well, I mean, what if Miami gets the ball first, though? Right?
Yeah. And if they don't, then that's probably
I think it's a fair strategy if you want to wait. I'm with Steve here. I think if you want action in this game, I think Miami is the more analytical side, and I think you have value.
Yeah.
The one thing I would caution, to go off that comment, when we're talking live, don't get baited. Like, Miami gets the ball first, goes down, scores, it's 7-0. that 11-point spread's going to 21, and do not pound it. You at that point now you're making a pretty bad bet, in my opinion.
Yeah, sure.
Very
Sure.
nice.
Yeah.
All right, boys. That's first one in the books. Yeah, I think I got talked out of an upset here. So I appreciate you talking me off the ledge. But nonetheless, we march on. We move on. Miami has trailed in many games this season. Yeah, I love taking them live, says C-Mac. Yeah, shout out. Good point.
Yeah. But and C-Mac, to your point, it's one of those positions that, yeah, if you get in that position, yeah, I think that's great, especially if you can get them in the second half. And that's where we've seen them turn it on third quarter, especially in the fourth. For me, it's one of those things where it's a risk you take. And I think from my standpoint, I think it's at 11 or 11 and a half last I saw, like, to me, like that's still a value. So I don't want to risk not getting a good number for a scenario that may or may not happen. You know what I mean? To your point, it could, but the 11, I have no qualms whatsoever.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. Before we move on, don't forget, guys, appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget to like the video. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Helps us keep this train rolling every single week. We love to do it for you guys, and keep the comments coming as well. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Let's move on. We got Georgia and Ole Miss up next. Now, this one is interesting to me because we talked earlier in the season about, was there an opportunity to buy low on Carson Beck for Heisman and things of that nature. I don't know if I'm being overreactionary here, but does Georgia have a Carson Beck problem now? Like, is he all of a sudden the weakest link in that team? And if so, like, what's the pathway here for Ole Miss? This is only one score spread, 2.5 right now. So effectively a coin flip. Is the Ole Miss upset here on the table?
Yeah, can I take this one, Seth?
Please.
Yeah, oh yeah, please.
Yeah, I'm going to try to do my best to keep logic, at the front of what we discussed. But man, oh man, I have a hard time believing that Ole Miss doesn't pull off this upset. And I know we say this every year, and it's one of those things that Lane Kiffin builds his Ole Miss teams for Georgia. He's come out and said that, and we saw what happened last year. They got absolutely smacked. But to your point, Kev, I am concerned about Carson Beck. I mean, he has 11 interceptions this year, right? All of them have come in the last 5 weeks, starting with that Alabama game. He has multi-games with 3 interceptions in a single game. Now, if you look at that Florida game last week, right? In my mind, if DJ Lagway doesn't get hurt and Georgia isn't facing a third-string quarterback for over a half of that game, Florida pulls off that upset. And this is what concerns me. Even if you say, okay, can Carson Beck kind of calm it down a little bit, maybe only throw 1 or 2 picks, right? Florida wasn't in a position to take advantage of that with their third stringer in. Ole Miss absolutely is. They lead the SEC in virtually every offensive category. They have the most number of games with explosive plays. They have the most number of games with, completions of, 30, 40, and 60 yards in the country. So it only takes 1 or 2 plays for Ole Miss to capitalize in a way that I don't think we've seen other teams do that against Georgia, except for that first half with Alabama. So what concerns me is they've done all this, right? They put up 63 against Arkansas last week, and that's without their clear number 1 wideout in Trey Harris, who is going to be back for this game. I mean, it's still probable, but he was going to be a game time decision last week. You better believe this is the biggest game of the year. He's suiting up. So if you have that offensive weapon back with this offense, with this team that's built to beat Georgia, with Carson Beck not protecting the ball, yes, you can easily sell me on an upset here. Now, Seth, I think you're going to talk me off the ledge, though. What's going on in your mind?
Yeah,
I can't fully talk you off the ledge here. What's up, Kevin?
I was just going to add one other quick bit before I turn it over to you. Shogun Mike, what's up, man? Glad to have you back. You mentioned it. Beck, most games with 3 picks this year, or multiple interception games this year. He's 60th in EPA per dropback in the country now. Flip it around, Ole Miss is 24th in the country in EPA per play allowed when passing. And then Jackson Dart, let's not write him off. He is one of, if not the best quarterbacks in the country right now. Number 2 currently in EPA per dropback. So, and Georgia's kind of like, they're okay. They're okay defensively for sure. But nothing like the drop off, just how Beck has been measured and where Dart is like, it's really night and day. So I'm with you, Steve. I'm a little aligned with you on this one. I think Ole Miss has a legitimate shot here at the upset.
Okay, I can't argue with they don't have a legitimate shot. I mean, we're talking about a 2.5-point spread. So I'm going to have to let you guys jump a little bit here, but I will do my best here to bring up some data, I think, for the contrary. And in full transparency, the raw model number here is Georgia winning by 4 points. So again, even with all the analytics, you're still pretty coin flip-ish game. But I mean, I got one word for you. I guess it's 2 words: boomer sooner. I mean, Ole Miss looked horrible against an abysmal Oklahoma offense, and they were stopped by that Oklahoma defense. You can't tell me, if you look at any metric, Georgia is better on every side of the ball here on that defensive front. So I do think that they can cause a lot of issues for Ole Miss and Dart. Now, on the other side of the throwing the ball, I mean, Texas, as of a lot of the numbers, is top 5 defense, and yet Georgia did have success against that team. And so I don't know that Ole Miss actually is going to be able to kind of slow down this Georgia offense. I do think that they can get going. Now, I say all of that because, again, we're talking about a 2.5-point market, a 4-point spread. Can Ole Miss do this? Yes, they can. It's not that crazy. It's even hard to call this an upset at a 4-point spread. This is in Mississippi, right? This is in Oxford.
Yeah, I believe so.
So you have that going for you. And both these teams, you can talk back a lot, but both these teams love to throw the ball. Georgia, 12% pass rate over expected. Ole Miss, 7% pass rate over expected. And defensively, when we look at offensively on points per equal, both these teams pay off drives. Georgia, 24th in points per equal. Ole Miss, 27th. So as I guess my ultimate argument to you guys, or not even an argument, just the thing I'd illuminate here is if this is a coin flip game, like, it's also a coin flip game on the Georgia side. Like, don't forget that they have dudes as well. They've had some big wins. And quite frankly, for my money, we have not seen Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin do this. They do. This is the game they always lose, always.
Yeah.
So why now? Why is it going to be different now? I'm not sure.
If not now, when? I guess, right? There's all
maybe never.
Yeah, maybe never. Perhaps you're right. Yeah.
And I don't know if this is actually a thing or not. Like, are we seeing what we're seeing with Beck? Is this just some sort of anomaly or trend over the last 5 games? Because really, it's been 4 of the last 5 games. We want to be a little more technical. Like, is it something that Beck has to get over? Or is it something that the defense is starting to figure out to bait Beck into? I mean, the games I've watched, they do just seem to be mental lapses. Yeah. Like, it doesn't seem like it's something that the defense is really forcing him into. Like, he's not getting rushed and he's having to kind of throw away or whatever. Like, it just seemed like bad reads on the defenses and not seeing these players drop back into coverage. And I think that's what scares me. Like, I would be more reassured as a Georgia backer to say, oh, well, we face some really tough defenses that scheme for Beck, because you can counter scheme a scheme, right? But if it's just Beck, like, oh man, no, I didn't see him, I wasn't paying attention. Like, you can't really get that mental thing. But I guess you can never really rule it out.
His worst games are Alabama and then in Jacksonville, their rivalry game against Florida. And Florida's given a lot of teams, specifically passing offenses, trouble. So it's tough to tease it out in the data, to be honest, right? That's why I guess you would want to kind of use an average. And to be fair, it's not like Georgia's passing numbers are some crazy number. We have them number 42 in our database for EPA per dropback for Georgia on offense. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's a stay away. What's the number? There's no value, right? We make it 3. So I'm assuming we don't make it value. Yeah. Right. There's no, I mean, it's God bless. Yeah. You want to bet Ole Miss, go for it. But I tend to want to side with the team that's done it before. This team is resilient, man. I mean, they were down by 30 to Alabama. They came back and took the lead. I don't know if that happened to Ole Miss. They even fight. I think that game maybe ends at 50.
Yeah. One last thing I'll say, though, to make the counter argument, we talk about this dominating Texas win that Georgia had, but it was really the same thing. Georgia dominated the first half, and then Texas came back. And again, I think he threw 3 interceptions in that game too, and that's what led Texas to come back and make it a lot closer, than it really should have been. So I'm with you. I'm not saying Ole Miss's defense is Texas defense. Let's not get crazy. But yeah,
no, Ole Miss can win this game. Ole Miss can win this game. But I don't know if this is is this an upset? You're 2.5-point dogs at home. I mean,
sure.
They'll storm the field, and they should.
Oh, for sure they will. Yeah. All right, let's see. 3-0 Bowling Green. They're on the 1-yard line, about to score again. First goal, about to be done 10-0. So
perfect. Well, that's why we have a 12.
Shut up. Let's go. All right, we move on. Next game up on the slate, baby. We got Michigan going up against number 8 Indiana, undefeated Indiana. Okay, this one, when I first saw it and kind of came across it, I was like, is 14 points enough for Michigan to catch here? I think they need to probably be catching more here. That was my visceral like reaction to it.
Yeah.
No value from our standpoint of it. We make the number 14 as well after it's regressed. But Indiana is the number 1 passing offense by my notes.
And our numbers as well.
And yeah, and then my question, two part here. Number 1, how does Michigan score? Because Indiana also is underrated, maybe defensively speaking, number 20 or top 20 in rushing EPA per play allowed. And that's generally how Michigan, if they can score, has been able to produce efficiency points, et cetera. It's not been through the air. So number 1, how does Michigan score? And number 2, how do they stop Indiana? Because it's been a struggle for them basically since the get. So I really don't know. Like I said, is 14 points enough here, or what am I missing?
Let's start with the numbers. I mean, you've highlighted Indiana number 1 pass offense, 46th rushing offense. And the interesting thing here is when we look at weighted EPA, again, up weighting and down weighting certain types of plays that are more correlated with winning. Indiana stays number 1 in offensive weighted EPA. Michigan 106th. To be honest, our raw number here actually makes this 13. So, there's not a value one way or the other, but we're basically right on the market at 14. Look, you can bet with some faith. What I think is driving this number, look at that team talent. I mean, this is the difference between a tried and true team that can go and win the national championship. They did it last year. They lost a lot of dudes, but they have a lot of 4- and 5-star guys right behind them. Now, they obviously aren't the team they were last year, but they have an insane depth of talent. Indiana has a ton of transfers, and this to me is going to be the game that's going to highlight how competitive Indiana can actually be in a playoff, because the numbers are supporting that. Look, this 14 is the number because you're going up against dudes. And even though those dudes have struggled this year, they're still 4- and 5-star recruits. They're still guys that, are top talent. So that's my only caution here for betting this. You're betting that you hope that Indiana can overcome that, to be honest.
Yeah, I hear you. Just Nick Saban, baby. You don't pay the right guys, you're shit out of luck, And maybe there are 4- and 5-star guys that are sitting behind on on the depth chart, so to speak. But if they're not good enough to
paying anybody,
fair enough. And maybe they've caught lightning in a bottle, so to speak, with the transfers and brought in the right guys for Kurt's program and whatnot. But I mean, Kurt, was Curtis Rourke, was he part of the transfer portal as well, or has he been there?
I don't remember. I mean, he took a ton of dudes from JMU. I mean, I think it was like 20 or something transfers.
Right. Yeah, it was crazy. But mentioned Jackson Dart earlier. Number 2 in EPA per dropback. Number 1 is Curtis Rourke. Like, dude is balling, absolutely balling out. So. To the point earlier, though, when we talked,
is he going to play though? Didn't he have a hand injury?
Oh, he's back, baby. He came back for 4 TDs last week. Oh, okay. He's all the way back.
All right.
And he transferred from Ohio.
Okay. Yeah. But to the earlier conversation, kind of about Miami's and their schedule, who they played too. Steve, do you have a similar feeling or thought with Indiana as well? Because that's probably what you hear. I've heard in a few different pockets, like they've had a soft ass schedule. Who the hell have they played?
Yeah, that's the one knock that Indiana gets. So if you look at PFF rankings, Indiana has the 99th hardest schedule. Michigan has played the 4th, right? And so that's kind of one of the knocks they see there. But I look at this, just because Michigan played a stronger schedule, I don't think that necessarily means they're going to be the better team. I mean, one, you see it, kind of in the line there, but 2, they both play Washington, right? Indiana won, Michigan lost. But Michigan's supposed to be this team with good defense who runs the ball well, right? That's going to be their MO. And the problem is they're 67th in defensive pass EPA and they're 44th in rush EPA. And so my concern here is they can't dominate this game flow, this kind of ground and pound rock fight where, yeah, they're going to run the ball, they're going to stop Indiana, they're going to make it a dirt fight. Like, this is going to get out of hand really quick because, like you mentioned, in our database, Indiana's second in the country in pass EPA. Michigan's 124th. I mean, we talked about it on this podcast. Every time we talked about Michigan, whether it was Davis Warren or Alex Orji or whoever it may be, if Indiana gets up by 2 scores and all of a sudden Michigan is forced to kind of change their game plan and rely on throwing the ball, that doesn't bode well for them. And I can easily see how you can get a 2-score cover here from Indiana. So, yeah, I get it. They've played a tougher schedule, but, you know, in the one matchup we've seen with both, Indiana has fared well. And I think you're going to see that this is going to be, we're going to find out who Indiana is. Now, I don't think that necessarily means they're going to cover, but I think you're going to find out, to Steph's point, who is Indiana really? And I just think it's kind of weird. We can have Michigan go from national champion to not even making a playoff in an expanded format. I mean, this is the fall of a program.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Yeah,
Pretty simple, boys.
I mean,
It's pretty simple.
I just look, I'm willing to take the egg on my face. I'm just cautioning this. I know this feels like it should just be 21 points. We thousands of hours in this. And if none of you are new here, like probably a lot of returning followers, like we were giving out alts against this team for a lot of these same reasons, but those were the big dogs. Those were the big dogs. Indiana they look great. They do. The playoff committee put them in number 8. They're going to be in the playoff as of right now. But this is a big data point to me, that broader stroke. This is a real deal talent, and the numbers don't support alts. If they do have an alternate game, then that's a huge data point. But for me, I think you're burning money here. I think you're hoping and you're thinking that it should be a bigger game than it actually bears out in the numbers.
Yeah, I think, to your point though, Seth, kind of reel us back in. This is one of those games where if Indiana covers the 14, you say, oh, yeah, that's expected. And if Michigan covers the 14, you're like, oh, yeah, see, they're a legitimate team. Like, I can see people waffle, one way or
either way.
But let me ask you this real quick, though, Seth. So to that point, if Indiana covers this game, do you think that's because Indiana is more of the real deal or because Michigan is not really who they are on paper, if that makes sense?
Yeah, both, because I was actually looking at this game as we were preparing for this. And the one major thing here that I couldn't help myself was how I think Indiana is a no bet. Yeah. Well, and the thing that I thought is, how much do priors mess up this forecast? And so just to get a little bit nerdy, right? So pretty much any good forecast when we're talking about sports betting is going to have a piece of information that's basically saying, this is who this team was last year, or it's some version of what we know about this team. And then as the season goes, you're down weighting that more and more and more. And at some point, you might get rid of it altogether. Now, we don't get rid of it altogether. We keep it in our model throughout the whole season. But is this an example where you have some synergies that are negative in a way, where you have Michigan's priors are the best team in the nation, and Indiana's priors are legitimately one of the worst teams in the nation. And so those two forces make this kind of converge at 14. But if you were to remove that, what do you get? I say all that. There's a reason you use the priors, because by and large, they're more accurate using them than not using them. So it's one of those where, like, when people want to tell you your models suck, and you're like, okay, yeah, like, and the classic, all models are wrong, but some are helpful, some are useful. But this isn't a good example where this may be the one example where that thing messes it up, but like for all the other forecasts, it's actually better, right? So it could be something there. So to your question, it could be a little bit of both. Like, it could be Michigan is just falling off a cliff so quickly, and Indiana is risen so fast that, like, we've never seen this before.
Yeah. And to Michael and C-Mac's point, again, like, this is a negative EV bet for us at -14, which is why we're not touching it. I think it was like -6%. So, to you guys' point about Indiana being a no bet, I mean, that is the smart decision.
And the raw number is 13. It wouldn't give you enough value to bet. You would need like a 14 or a 14.5 or 15 to take Michigan, but don't be surprised.
Don't be surprised. Yeah. Hey, Central Michigan helped him to another field goal. So 6-0, baby. Let's go.
The Chippewas?
Something like that. Yeah.
Let's go.
All right, guys. Yeah, don't forget again. Appreciate you guys liking the video, hitting the subscribe button if you can as well. We're gonna keep this thing rolling. You guys know the drill. Yeah, appreciate the engagement. It's great.
I guess also we got to fill them in. So you're gonna hear it at the end. One of the model plays is Central Michigan plus 12.5. So we're sweating this bet because that game is going on right now. So sweat it along with us. 12.5 is what we have.
Yeah.
Chippewas plus 12.
It's the real action tonight, baby. All right, next up on the list, Colorado. Number 21, Colorado, going up against Texas Tech. Texas Tech, unfortunately for us, fresh off their upset win over Iowa State last week. And Colorado's coming off a bye, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So this one to me is an interesting kind of like strength on weakness situation. So Colorado is a top 25 team in passing, and Texas Tech is like bottom tier in
we make them
defending the pass.
113th in our database.
100, yeah. They're struggling, but both teams, offensively speaking, are in the top 50 in overall adjusted EPA per play. So, like shootout is kind of what the initial vibes I'm getting here on this one. But we show a slight edge or slight lean to Texas Tech favor here, but not enough for us to bet it here. But I guess I can see this. I can see the game script being such that Travis Hunter really solidifies himself as maybe even the favorite in the Heisman, and just going off against that really subpar passing defense for Texas Tech here. So this one is still only, is it still at 3, or was that was as of earlier, right? Let's double check this real quick.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Tech money's going to come in on this.
Yeah, Circa's at 3.5. Most of the retail's at 3.5 as well at the moment. So a little bit of movement towards Colorado so far.
Colorado.
Yep. But yeah, I guess what's your assessment of this one, Steve? Is it really just, is it going to be the Shador and Travis Hunter show, or is there more to it?
I think there's got to be more to it. I mean, if you asked me this last week, I think I would have agreed with you. But what scares me is look what they did to Iowa State, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we had the same argument as to why Iowa State was going to cover this game and kind of beat them kind of handily. And Texas Tech did their damn thing against an Iowa State defense. And also Iowa State's defense has a better rushing, better pass defense than Colorado. And Iowa State has a sneaky good, sneaky super efficient offense as well. And that was supposed to be Texas Tech's weak link. And, they relatively bottled them up here. So, it's one of those things where if they can contain Iowa State and not be contained by Iowa State, then to me, this is a wide open game for Tech to knock off their second ranked team in a row here in Colorado. I think for me, one of the things I have a question on is, can Colorado stop Taj Brooks, the running back of Texas Tech? He's one of 2 running backs in the country with at least 100 yards in every game he played. And again, Iowa State has that better defense. So if Colorado can't bottle him up, then what you do is you leave the quarterback for TTU and Barry Morrison to have a relatively non-cheated, non-extra shaded defense, and he's already proven he can slice and dice those defenses up. So to me, that's kind of what I'm looking for. That's going to be the battle that makes or break it, because we know Texas Tech can put up points, and I don't know if Colorado can stop them if Iowa State couldn't.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't say it better myself. I mean, this Colorado team is a one-headed monster. Like, I cannot highlight this enough. And they're not bad at it. They're 51st passing offense, but this is a team that throws the ball 14% more than an average team. I mean, you slow that down in any way, they then drop to the 92nd best rushing offense. So, I mean, this is a tale of 2 teams. And if you make them run the ball, you're going to get up, it's going to be a long day for Colorado. Texas Tech, tough place to play. There in Lubbock. So I mean, the raw number here is Texas Tech -3. So money line, I think, can be a play there, plus 155. I'm not playing it personally, but I think in a shootout that might not be bad. And then now that we're getting 3.5s, you may consider this. We'll run the number later in the week, but as we get
What do we make the number?
In that
Let's bring the graphic up. I think we make it 1, or we made it 1
as of now, but the raw number is -3. So as you go up, and up and up, you're going to start to peak through there. So at some point, the 3.5, 4s, you're going to get a huge bump in EV. So I won't be surprised when I run this tomorrow if this is actually not a play on Texas Tech.
And
it's gross. It's gross. Like you said, Kevin, 113th pass defense for Texas Tech. But if you just obeyed them in any way, not to get confused with unabated, shout out, use code BTB. But if you slow this Colorado pass offense down at all, I mean, it's a tale of two different tools, so to speak.
Man, Shador's been watching film for 2 weeks, man. He's locked in. He ain't even registered for spring classes. He's going to the league. He ain't fucking worried about nothing else but Texas Tech's shitty defense. So
I got good for him, man. No degree, though. No degree.
I'd be too.
I guess. I only left college. Every time I left college, I left with degrees.
and here we are.
And here we are. He probably makes more money than I do now.
Shout out.
All
right, yeah, we'll see. It should be a good one. But yeah, market's making it a close one for now, eking up, like we said, towards Colorado at the moment. But we'll see. We'll see what the market does the rest of the week. So, all right. We got one other pretty big matchup. I think huge implications in this one for sure. So good SEC matchup. We got Alabama going up against LSU. Full disclosure, we're on Bama -2 on this one. I mean, just could not probably have bigger playoff implications for both of these teams. Both have 2 losses. The loser of this one is just not. They're not going to make it in. I would be really hard pressed to see how that would be the case. An interesting little nugget here. I mean, we're in different times, but this is the 18th straight time that Alabama has been favored against LSU. So they're, for whatever reason, like LSU, at least the market does not historically, give them any love when going up against Alabama here. But I want to just get two quick thoughts off and kick it to you, Steve. So LSU loves to pass the ball. You can see their run rate over expected. They're -15.5%. So they're passing the ball quite a lot, and they love to do it, and they're good at it. They're a top 20 team on a per play basis. But Bama is also kind of this strength on strength situation. Like they're also good at defending the pass as well. I have it at them at number 22 in defending the pass. Again, last thing I'll say, 2 losses for each team. I think the losses for Alabama to Tennessee, which is top 10 at this point, so I forget the number exactly, and then to Vanderbilt, which is hey, now they're ranked as well, and their losses versus LSU's losses, I think, are, I guess, a little more impressive if you want to say it in any way. So this one, to me, I feel I like that there's value on this side. I like that we're on Bama. I think they probably figure out how to handle business. But what is your assessment of this one?
Yeah, no, I do love this pick, and you want to throw out trends here, and stats like that. I think LSU has like a 13-game win streak or 17-game win streak at home in Tigerland. Tiger Stadium. So yeah. So we went there last year, and definitely one of the greatest campuses and experiences. But here's my thing. We talked about this with Carson Beck. Same thing for Garrett Nussmeier. Can he protect the ball? Right. We talk about that loss to Texas A&M. 3 second-half picks against Texas A&M that Garrett threw here. And they also struggled with the switch to the mobile dual threat quarterback in Marcel Reed for A&M. That posed them a serious problem when he got to the game here. And this can be problematic as, oh, what do you know? Alabama has a dual threat quarterback in Jalen Milroe. And oh, by the way, they're tied second in the SEC, 14th in the country in interceptions defensively. So the same things that plagued LSU last year against A&M certainly has the recipe from an Alabama standpoint to plague them again. And that's why I'm a little concerned here. If you're an LSU backer, that's why I feel great about being on the Bama side. And then again, on LSU side defensively, you kind of talked about this, but the key for me here is, can they limit Jalen Milroe on the ground? In both of Bama's losses, Milroe has only rushed for no more than 11 yards per game and only has a combined 1 touchdown in those 2 games, where he's normally averaging about 2 rushing touchdowns a game, closer to 80 yards or so on the ground there. So you have to make him one-dimensional. But what I go back to is, okay, let's say you can do that. LSU will be the weakest pass defense that Alabama's faced, so far. So, or at least in conference play. So I don't even know if that's going to be enough here. So, and I'm trying to struggle with this and trying to, kind of make a mental model of how LSU could come back and cover or win this game. And I'm really just not seeing it. So I'm glad we're on this side with Bama. My mental model totally agrees.
Yeah, and I mean, as this season has progressed, LSU this season is just a shittier version of who they were last year. They're pretty good throwing the ball, but their defense is pretty trash. But the only difference is last year they had the literal best offense and best passing offense. So they don't have that this year. And I think, unfortunately, for them, it's showing in a lot of these interesting games. To your point, Steve, LSU 61st stopping the run. So what are they going to do there? Oh, but wait, 81st stopping the pass. They're not going to be able to stop Alabama, and they're going to have a lot of different ways to slice and dice them. And to your earlier point, Kevin, LSU 21st passing EPA team in offense in our database, 111th rushing offense. This team can only throw the ball. They are the Super Saiyan version of the Colorado team we were just talking about. When we look at weighted EPA and we look at plays that should be up-weighted and down-weighted because they're more correlated with winning games, Alabama 12th offense for weighted EPA, LSU 42nd. Defensive weighted EPA, Alabama 10th, LSU 64th. So I think 2.5. We gave that out. We actually have a 2. This is a slam dunk bet. Are the raw number here 6? I wouldn't go too crazy. Unfortunately, alt season is still warming up, I guess, for this game. But
yeah, Michael says Jaden Daniels ain't walking on the field Saturday. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
So the Death Valley, unfortunately, this Saturday, I think is only going to be death for the Tigers. Now it is, things that are quantifiable that are in this model and are in our model and in this projection, but that can have variance, right? Night game in LSU Tiger Stadium. I mean, that place is going to be rocking. The question will be for how long, right? How what is, if Alabama goes down the field and drives the ball right away and scores? I mean, do they have enough to keep up that energy? We saw 2 seasons ago. Daniels took them down the field, beat Alabama at LSU. So it can happen. But again, I think this LSU team is just a skeleton of basically what we saw last year.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I was just checking the score. Yeah, 6-0 still. Bowling Green. Yeah. So we're good. We're good for now. We're good. Chippewas, baby. Shout out. All right, that'll do it for game previews for us. Let's head on down. Let's head on down the pipeline. Let's zoom out now. Let's talk about the college football landscape at large here. So it was just yesterday, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, that the initial CFP rankings came out, correct?
Yes, I believe.
Or for the seedings or whatever they call it.
Actually, I think it was today. No, you're right. No, it was today, I believe.
Who put that out? I'm trying to see where.
I'm on collegefootballplayoff.com and it says November 5th.
Okay.
Was that just updated to say? Because I thought I saw one where BYU was. Okay, go ahead.
I don't know. Could be.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, BYU's 9. Yeah, BYU's 9.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have, Steve, for them to make the playoff or them to win the Big 12?
Them to make the playoffs.
Oh,
and Iowa State lost, so they're in the driver's seat.
For sure. So okay, all right. Let's talk about it with our landscape here, juxtaposed here. So the top 12, I'll just rattle them off real quick, and maybe we can kind of hone in or focus a little bit on that so far. So Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia, Miami, Texas, Penn State, Tennessee, Hoosiers, BYU, Notre Dame, number 10, and then Alabama 11, Boise State 12, SMU, shout out Mustangs 13, right on the outside looking in right now. So with that being said, what like one do you think this is? Do you guys think this is right? The initial kind of playoff rankings that the committee kind of put forth here, and 2, someone give me something that SMU's got a chance here. I need a little hope. I need some hopium, baby.
Well, before I talk about any of those teams, Army at 25, I think is the real like tickler there. That's me. They're just leaving the door open. So I just hope that happens. No, I mean this doesn't look. I mean BYU for sure wasn't on any of our lists or my lists. I'll speak for myself, but I don't remember seeing any of those. But I mean a lot of familiar faces. Oregon, interesting arc here. Pretty much everyone's number one team coming in. They were, I think that no, actually Ohio State was the number one, but Oregon was kind of favored there. 1, 2, 3. They kind of looked really, really slow, and then they've won pretty much every game. You know, they've done what they need to do. And now they're sitting at number one. So an interesting arc there for that team. Indiana, obviously, and BYU are the crazy ones to me. Or not crazy that they shouldn't be here, but that like
just unexpected.
Didn't see it coming.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve.
Oh no, I have a hypothetical to pose, so you can go ahead first.
Yeah, just a broad comment, not team specific, but I think there was a lot of uncertainty or maybe borderline animosity / vitriol against this new playoff format from a lot of different corners of the world. Like this is where the money is at. This is just kind of how things are going to evolve going forward. But the one thing that I have realized too now is that we talked about one of these games earlier, an Alabama and LSU game where both teams already have 2 losses. In prior iterations of the playoff format, this would be a non-meaningful game in terms of playoff contention. Right. But we're this new format here, at least we're later into the season with 2 lost teams talking about a meaningful game. And so I think it's generally, early returns, it's just really new, so to speak. But I think it's been positive for the sport. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, I don't understand who would be mad at the new playoff format. I mean, it's this, or like what you'd be mad at is like all these extra bowl games that are just the money grabs. Like I don't want to watch the Duke's Mayo Bowl. I don't want to watch the Fruit of the Loom Bowl, right? Like I don't want like a papsmear.com bowl.
Whoa, that's my favorite bowl. So that's too far.
Yeah, but now you have actual more teams, more games, meaningful, like you said. The games are more meaningful towards the end of the year. Yeah. And you get a legitimate chance because after, what was that, 4 or 5 years ago when Cincinnati got blown out, right, in the CFP, right? Like, that was the death of a G5 school ever going to be in the top 4. Now you have an automatic bid of a G5 team, so at least one. So I think that's just great for the sport.
Yeah, and also the death of Cincinnati. I don't think they've been good since. I totally couldn't agree more. This makes everything better. This makes it cool. This also gives those middle teams more of a shot. Like BYU in the playoffs. Like if you go to BYU or you're an alumni of BYU, you could play a crazy game. You could play Tennessee, you could play Alabama, you could play these crazy games. And if they win the Big 12 or the Big 12, they're gonna get a home playoff team.
Right.
Alabama might be going to Provo or wherever the hell they play.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
that would never.
That's cool.
Happen.
That is super cool.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, can I ask my hypothetical real quick? My hypothetical. Yeah. So can you pull up the landscape again? And guys, let me know here. Chat, let me know here if I'm crazy here. So there's this whole theory is based off of, do we think Georgia is not going to lose another game, right? Because again, we talk about the issues with Beck at quarterback and the interceptions and kind of what that looks like. So just to kind of prime this, right? So Georgia has to play. They have Ole Miss, Tennessee, UMass, and Georgia Tech, right? So really two games you would expect that actually could be problematic in Ole Miss and Tennessee. So if you look at the SEC standings, right, you've got Georgia, 5-1. You got Texas A&M 5-1. You've got Tennessee 4-1, Texas 3-1, and LSU. So you got 5 teams with 1 loss. Okay, so Texas has to play Texas A&M. Okay. Tennessee has to play Georgia, and we saw about how LSU has to play Alabama, right? So if you have one of these teams, let's just say Texas beat Texas A&M, okay? So let's say A&M is out, they have 2 losses, right? If Tennessee can beat out Georgia, and they do have to play a feisty Vanderbilt team, right? But I guess I'm saying all this to say, if Georgia loses another game and they're down to 2 losses, right, you could have a scenario where now you've opened up the door for someone else. We all thought it was going to be Georgia, Texas for the championship game, but Tennessee might have a pathway in here as a 1-loss team to play in the SEC championship game. Is Tennessee a team that we're not talking about that could have some sort of SEC aspirations here? I mean, you look at them quadrant oblique, right? Top right-hand corner.
They're in, but aren't they in? They're number 7. They're in they're
no. I mean to win the SEC, because right now they're plus 700 to win the SEC.
So they would jump from pretty much that 7th spot to the 3rd spot
to one of the top 4s.
Oh no, okay. I'm not talking about the CFB playoffs. I'm talking about just to win the SEC.
Sure, but by definition, right, the top 4 seeds are the winners of the Power 4.
Yeah.
So in this case, if they won the SEC, they're going to be a top 4 seed, but they're the same thing.
Well, no, okay. Let me rephrase. Tennessee to win the SEC is plus 700. Again, that's ultimately what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like Georgia, I think it's plus 165. Texas is plus
and
Georgia plus 135. Texas
Georgia plays Tennessee.
Yes.
And they play Vanderbilt.
And they play Georgia plays Ole Miss, and Tennessee plays Georgia and Vanderbilt. Yeah. So ultimately, my question is plus 700 just to win the SEC. Is that crazy?
I mean, our number against Mississippi State is 18.5. There's some value betting Mississippi State, which means there's probably value on the money line. So is this I don't know. I say let's go to the Sims.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, for me, this is all banking on the fact that I think Georgia is beatable. I think Georgia, the way Carson Beck is currently playing, could slip against these 2 ranked teams they're facing back-to-back. That's the key piece of my theory. If you don't buy that, then I think you're burning money sprinkling on Tennessee. But if you buy that theory, that's kind of my question here, if that makes sense.
No, I think it's a fair question here. One Vanderbilt's good. Good. So I don't even know if it's an upset at this point.
Sure.
Yeah, to your point. I mean, Georgia 2.5 point favorite. It's basically a coin flip game this weekend. The question though I have is, it's Georgia will, whether they lose this game or not. Well, I guess it depends on how much, but more than likely, there's not a whole lot that can happen this weekend where Georgia's not going to be favored against Tennessee.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that.
Sure,
something crazy would have to happen. Yeah, but again, is that 3? Is that 7? And
and remember. Okay, there's more nuance to this bet. So the bet is Tennessee to win the SEC, correct?
Yeah.
So they have to make the SEC championship, but then they have to win that game, which means that they could play. Who theoretically are they going to play? Georgia again? Alabama again?
No, if Tennessee makes the SEC game, I think they would have to play Texas or Texas A&M.
They're definitely not going to be favored against Texas, and they'll probably be small favorite against
A&M.
I'm running the Sims as we speak, so
okay, yeah.
We'll let the math tell us. But
I mean, I got a couple positions for them to win the national championship to begin with, so I would feel like I'm a little. I'd be double dipping a little prematurely.
Yeah.
In my opinion,
this is purely a mental exercise.
But I don't hate the angle. I don't hate the thought. Yeah. So, all right, Seth, when the Sims get updated, we can revisit that quickly. Yeah. But let's jump ahead of here now. So, went through the landscape. Let's talk about off the numbers. So, for anyone new here, this is our little segment where the 3 of us make a pick individually outside from what our model says, and then just kind of have a friendly little competition as the season progresses here. So, I'll kick it off here, I guess. This week I'm going back to some over-unders here, for better or for worse. So I am on the under 61.5 in the Tennessee and Mississippi State game. And the thesis is basically an inconsistent Tennessee offense right now right now is ranked 84th in the nation in adjusted EPA per play on a net basis. Tennessee still being one of the, if not the top defense in the land, going up against a middling at best Mississippi State offense. The one thing that gives me a little pause in this one, although I have already seen a little bit of CLV shout out on this one, is Mississippi State's defense. I mean, in some respects, quite literally almost the worst in the nation on some metrics. So they are 122nd, 123rd, third down success rate, 132nd in EPA per pass allowed. So there are some things that kind of give me a little pause on this one, but broad thesis is Tennessee's defense is going to stifle Mississippi State into the ground. And I've not been we've not been wowed enough by Nico in that offense, despite the kind of the early season accolades and how everyone was riding, dick riding them, so to speak. So I think 61.5 is a lot. This spread is sitting at 24.5. Seth, you mentioned it earlier. I think our number is 16, I believe.
18 and a half.
18
so
and a half.
Supports less points.
Yeah. So I find I can't really foresee a game script in my head that's going to afford that many points unless you get some high variance like pick six stuff from Tennessee, that type of thing. So I'm on the under 61.5 Tennessee Mississippi State.
I could just see the clip rolling like when Tennessee played Kent State, and it's just like 100-yard bomb somehow, like play after play after play.
Yeah.
All right, I got the Sims. The number we make it is plus 868. So it looks like DraftKings you can get a plus 950. BetMGM plus 1400. I doubt these are real numbers.
Yeah.
At those numbers, there'd be some value, but
yeah,
it's at plus 700. It's not.
Sure.
There's no edge.
Okay. All right, you guys go through your picks real quick, and then Michael got a question that I want to get to.
Okay, I'll go because it's fast and it's repetitive. Go Army, beat Navy. I'm not stopping this. So we lost 2 weeks ago I think last week maybe or
last
week.
They played. But their quarterback went out. Is their quarterback back?
I don't know. Who cares? It doesn't matter.
Go Army, beat Navy.
Go Army, beat Navy. This is North Texas, an abysmal team. This is going to be a step up in class, and mostly from the analytics here. I also want to point out this. Like, I think we struggle with this a lot early in the season. It's very difficult to get talent numbers for Army, Navy, Air Force. It's very difficult to get rosters. It's very difficult to get any recruiting information on these guys, and because of that, I think a lot of people are misrepresenting this team and their talent levels. And I think they're much more talented than they actually come up on some of these more, like if you use 24/7 Sports, their talent number is 0. We don't think that's representative. We adjust it in some other ways. We make this number 14. Go Army, beat Navy.
What number did you get, Seth?
5.5. I will probably bet a little sprinkle on an alt line, alt season baby, 13.5, minus 13.5 Army. Did not know about their quarterback injury. I don't think it matters, but
no, he's going to be back. The report said Bryson Daly he should be playing this year or this week, which shocked the hell out of me, honestly, because 5.5 is not nearly enough.
It's not by a long shot.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Go Army, beat Navy.
Hopefully your pick, Steve, is alternate line Army minus 13.5. Tell me.
Oh God, I want to so hard. No, my pick's gonna be Miami minus 11. I mean, we talked about this game earlier here about this Miami offense, the revenge spot from last year, how they tanked their season. Haynes King, is he going to be available? If he is he even going to be functional? This Miami offense is just too damn explosive at any point in time in the game. I think you're going to see a team that's going to make it a point to make an example out of Georgia Tech. I love a blowout here. Give me minus 11 all day.
Okay. All right. So let's bring the recap up for the record. Once again, I'm on the under 61.5 for Tennessee's, but that's okay. And then Steve minus 11 for Miami, and Seth minus 5.5 for Army. I think you and I, Seth, are both 4-2, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And then Steve's you're making a small comeback. You got
2 weeks in a row. Don't call it a comeback.
Hey, yeah.
Watch your back.
Call it a comeback. No, watch your back. All right. I had this question from Michael come up, so I wanted to have a quick little discussion on it. Do you ever make wagers that the model doesn't agree with? And notwithstanding the off the number stuff, that's just kind of separate too. So Seth, definitely fill in the gaps here and provide some context here.
Well, we probably all have different answers, but yeah.
I take the model every week. No.
Yeah. So the answer is yes, you do, because I wouldn't say often. It has happened for me occasionally, but largely speaking, when you spend a lot of money paying people to wrangle data and develop models, and you spend a lot of your own time, Seth, fucking quantify the hours if you could, good luck, right? But the amount of hours and time that goes into building something like this, it usually does not do you well to fade the model, so to speak, or fade a model. But we do know, broadly speaking, like any model out there, ours, anyone else's, you can never account for all the variables, right? There's always going to be blind spots, so to speak, in a model, whether it's from an injury, player perspective or some other team level perspective. So Yes, occasionally, yes, but it's not like we'll look at the model output and be like, oh yeah, this is definitely wrong. This is definitely a fade spot. Never anything like that.
Yeah, and I want to save Seth for last. I think he'll have the most profound answer, being the one, the closest to all the data and the processes. But from my standpoint, Michael, kind of, I agree with Kevin there. For me, there are times where there are obvious things that we know the model may be missing, that it's not interpreting, that I think that, hey, this plus that information. So, I'll give you an example. We have times where we're using, the data for a team, but now we have a third string quarterback in who has not contributed to any of that data so far, right? And it's not a 5-star recruit, it's a 3-star walk on or whatever, or 3-star walk on or whatever it may be, or you have a ton of injuries. And so really in the college, for the most part, there really is nothing that is player specific, right? It's a lot of team data, play-by-play data. And so we don't really pay too much attention to, oh, okay, well, the one left tackle is out, or, the one running back is down. But when you start piling up things like, kind of my thing last week for off the numbers was the Ohio State, Penn State under, you had a makeshift offensive line, right? You have multiple injuries at key spots, leading receiver, leading running back, 2 linemen down, stuff like that. I think you can use the data to aid you on what that game should look like. And then you kind of make a leap of faith based off of, all this uncertainty. And that can help you make a smarter bet. So that's personally how I use it. And then I'll kick it to Seth.
Yeah. And I think my opinion on this is there's 2 key pieces, I think, of information for me. So, because I get this question quite a lot, and I want to point something out, because I hear this kind of narrative a lot, like, well, this is a letdown spot, or this is that spot. The reality here is you spend all the time in the world testing and quantifying as much, if not everything you can. And what you find is when you bear out a lot of this narrative-based stuff, it's fugazi. There's no signal there. And so I say that part because there's really no real good reason to actively fade the model. So because you've done all the work to quantify 90% of the angles and the different scenarios and the different data that you want to look at that are actually predictive. So then to to use all the work to get that number and then be like, no, it's wrong. It's counterproductive. So that's one thing I'd point out. Just like Steve said, though, I think for sure there are a lot of reasons why you wouldn't bet something from the model. So there's a ton of things that can happen to rule out a bet. I can basically think of no situation where you would actively fade the model. And a good example is just like I was talking about, that Army stuff. Something that I didn't pick up on until like about week 5, and shout out, I'm sorry to all the members, I cost us one bet, is it's a long story. I don't want to get into the weeds on it, but long story short, we had a very, very scientific and algorithmic way to quantify talent. We had to move in a different direction because of data issues, and we were using talent from 24/7. I didn't realize 24/7 for the Armed Academy teams uses a 0 talent. This is insanely important because it is saying that they truly have no recruitable talent, which is not true. And you get forecasts that are penalizing these teams inaccurately, quite literally inaccurately. So we had to go back to this other method so we can quantify that. And when we do that, we see forecasts that are much more in line with how this team, both Army and Navy, have performed this year. So that would be an example of, you wouldn't fade the model, but you would say, what's wrong with the model? Let's update it. And then let's do that. So that's a long way of saying, no, I think you spend all the hours in the world doing this. It actually works. Remember that. That's the difference between us and a lot of other people you're going to hear about. Our models actually win. Why would I actively try to use my mental model, which sucks worse, or narrative-based betting, which is even worse than my mental model? I mean, go look at my NFL record on the next show. You're going to see how bad my mental model is.
Hey, small sample size, man. Come on.
Oh, well, it's getting worse. Yeah. That sample is going to get bigger, but that records, I don't think it's getting bigger. So there's really no reason, in my opinion, there's no reason to actively fade the model. There's a ton of reasons why you could rule something out.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about Michael's in a minute, actually.
Yeah. Well, just one real quick, and then we'll move on to the model picks. But yeah, appreciate the comments and the questions, Michael. Don't know if you're a member or not, or if you're just new to us, but yeah, happy to try to give some. I mean, these are, it's not like elevator pitch answer. Like, there's a lot of nuance to this discussion for sure. So appreciate the comments nonetheless. So, all right.
Can I say real quick?
Please.
Gibbo Bets, everyone else watching, yes, we're on the YouTube podcast series, so you can get this in audio if you want to listen to this on your way to work or while you're working. So shout out 3% Edge podcast. You can find that there. And then, if there's definitely an interest for it, we can do an RSS feed to all the other podcast sites.
Shout out Gibbo. Gibbo's a real one.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of real ones, baby, let's move on. Last segment of the show for today, we got model predictions, college football week 11. So year to date, let's pull up the card here. Year to date, we are 61, 47, and 1. So thanks. Yeah, shout out Gibbo. Doing well. The model is performing well, kind of right at expectation, really, at this point. So still have a pretty healthy volume this week. So let's roll through those real quick, Seth, and then we'll talk a little model recap.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so speaking Tuesday night, we're on Central Michigan, which is happening right now. We're on +12. There was also 12.5 if you could get them. That's games happening right now as we speak. Oklahoma State +11.5, Alabama -2 or 2.5, Oregon -24.5, JMU Dukes -16, NC State -2.5, UAB +6.5, and West Virginia +4. You'll see Texas. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Texas on there. We show a ton of value. I probably will play this personally. Why didn't we give it out? Florida. I'm sorry. Florida would be the play. Why didn't we give Florida out against Texas at 21.5? Well, Florida is literally down to potentially the third string quarterback. This is something we have no way to quantify. The data we have for Florida is not that quarterback. We have like 20 plays with this dude. So that's a reason why you might not bet something, even though you show an edge. In this case, I think Florida is good enough defensively to hold this team. So I think it's something I still do think has value, but that's a reason why you might not bet it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So yeah, that's officially what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 by my count.
Yeah, it's like a medium build volume.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. So but yeah, given Seth, given where the model's at, basically just about halfway, a little over halfway through the season now, including playoffs, if you want. And with the volume, I know, Steve, you posted a kind of a mid-season recap of where things are at for both college and NFL. So be sure, if you guys are in here, check that out on our social media pages as well. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, even now. Shout out. So yeah, given where the models performed year to date and the expected volume the rest of the year, I guess how do you feel about where things stand in its current week?
Yeah, I feel good. I think we'll probably bet another 30-ish to 40 games after this weekend. So I feel good. I think we're right around 56%. I'd love to get to 60, but I'm not greedy. I'd love to just get us to the 150 number. That's the lower end of our forecasted total bets, and have 55%. That's a win for me. That's for everybody. We have 81 paid members. 81 of those people probably have never won in sports betting before. So to me, it's a very big win to bring people around this journey, show them what it looks like. Also, part of what this looks like when people say they win 55%, what that looks like and feels like. That is not Lambos and sunshine. Okay, that's one weekend you go 30%, the next weekend you go 70%. Like, there's no rule that it's just 55 every weekend and every weekend's all great, right? There's variance. That it's I don't want to say it's hard, because when you look back, you're like, well, that was just easy. All I had to do was just bet the games. But you get in your head, speaking of the question earlier, like, you want to tell yourself, oh, is this working? Is it not working? It's tough.
Yeah.
But I think we're sitting good. I don't know, what's your guys' perspective?
Oh yeah, I really 100%. Yeah, I'm not sure how there's much to complain about, both from a volume standpoint or from a performance standpoint either.
Yeah.
So
and the last thing I'll say is, to Seth's point about hitting that 55% of people who talk about winning in sports betting, over 150 games, right? Like, anyone can get hot over 10 games, sample size, but to do it over 150 plus games, like that's the difference.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So yeah, looking forward to another good week. Right now, we're technically still covering. We'll see. Ooh, nice little 44-yard run by Central Michigan. Let's go.
That's right. That's my Chippewas.
Oh, all right, boys and girls. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the engagement. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We very much appreciate all of it. Seth, you going to leave us with something?
Well, I was just going to say, if you want to hang out for more, we're going to be live here in a couple minutes for the NFL. So make sure you're on the channel and come hang out with us in the NFL. We can talk all NFL. We can answer any questions over there. And yeah, just thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Yes, sir. All right, boys. Until next week for college. We'll see you.